Hello, my name is Cedric Fisher, publisher of Influence Magazine. Today our special guest is Travis Wiltshire, president of C&G Engineering. Welcome, Travis.
Thank you for having us, Cedric.
First question, tell our readers what C&G Engineering, describe the C&G.
All right, Cedric. Well, as you can tell, CNG does not stand for Travis Wiltshire. CNG is named after my children. So I figured if I was going to be successful in business, I needed to name my company after my children. So the C goes for my daughter, whose name is Kaya, CNG. And then you have G, which is for Gavin. And then the and instead of using an end or an and symbol, I use an N. So CNG is Kaya and Gavin.
Okay. Tell us about yourself, where you're from, when you're born.
All right. Well, I just turned 50 this year. So I was born in 1967 in Brooklyn, New York. Born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. Went to Penn State University, got my degree, lived in Pittsburgh for a little while, and then I moved down to the sunny Texas environment of San Antonio. And I've been living here for the last 20 years.
Okay. You're a highly accomplished entrepreneur, and I would guess that your life is probably filled with your business at all times. What's the current day in the life like for Travis Wiltshire?
One of the things that is very important to me is my health. So what I try to do every day, or at least 5 times a week, is I try to work out. So either I'll get up early in the morning, do some sort of workout, I'm a P90X kind of guy, or I'll do it a little bit later in the evening. I normally come into the office, I try to get here pretty early, and I normally read a couple devotionals. So I do one that's devoted mainly on just prayer, and then the other one that's a leadership devotional as well. Probably the first few hours of the day is a meeting with the different departments here at C&G, and we call it not meetings but huddles. So most people that are more familiar with, I guess, what's going on in industry right now, they say that huddles are important for your team. So typically we meet with the different departments and talk about what we're going to accomplish on this particular day, what we actually accomplished yesterday, and then what we're going to accomplish tomorrow. And then we talk about what we consider our stuck items. And those are the things that people within the room will affect whether or not you can complete your task or not. So those are things that are pretty important, and that's normally what we do, I guess, probably the first couple hours of the day. As I go through my day, typically I read a few emails, as most people do, and then I end up probably spending the next few hours dealing with client information. So whether or not I'm actually communicating with clients on the phone or actually going out to meetings with different clients to really drum up business, that's what I typically do towards the middle to end of the part of the day. As I end up getting into more the evening portion of it, that's probably where I devote part of my time into what I would say is my extracurricular activities, as well as things that I like to do from a devoting my time standpoint. So I donate my time to 2 different organizations mainly. I'm really big into soccer, and my kids are into soccer, so I spend a lot of time doing that. And then also ACE Mentoring. So we have an organization that deals with inner city kids mainly that want to get involved in architecture, construction, and engineering. So that's where I normally devote my time. And then in the evening, as I said before, if I don't get to work out in the morning, I try and work out later on in the evening. And that's probably the typical life and day of Travis Wiltshire.
Describe C&G Engineering's product and competitive advantage in the marketplace.
Okay, so C&G Engineering, what we do is we provide mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineering services to architects who basically design facilities. So I say in a different way, what we do is we make buildings habitable. Most of the time when you walk into a space, you look at the archways, you look at the doors, you look at the space itself, and normally that's what an architect does. They make it what they consider beautiful. But if it's too hot in the space, if it's too cold, if it's not bright enough, if the restrooms don't work, those are the things that make it habitable. Those are the things that people normally don't notice unless there's something going wrong. So that's what we typically provide. What I tell people that C&G does that I think we do a little bit different than most folks, and I think that hopefully I'm a good example of that, is as an engineer, most of the time engineers are introverts. They don't like dealing with people. They don't like talking to people. Well, I love people. I love talking to people. And what I try to make sure is that we are good communicators. So typically, when you're talking to an architect, you're talking to your client. Most of the time, an engineer, they want to tell you what you want to do. And what I try to tell people is what we need to do is we need to find out what they want. So our ultimate goal is to make sure that we manage our clients' expectations. So our goal always is to manage our clients' expectations, and then what we try and do is we try and meet or exceed those expectations. And we find out when you do that, you can be successful.
Okay. You've been in business 20 years now?
Well, I've been in San Antonio for 20 years.
20 years. How long have you been in business?
So I've been in our field for about 25 years, but C&G has been in existence for 13 years.
13 years. Okay. What was your inspiration for considering entrepreneurship as a career?
Well, you know what, Cedric, that is not something I really wasn't sure if I wanted to do or was going to do or not. Being an engineer, typically by nature, a lot of times, you're more conservative. You don't really want to go out on a limb. But when I think back to it from the time that I was young, I'd always do things that an entrepreneur would do. From the time I was little, I would go on these different bus rides with my church. And what I would do is I would actually arrange for a kid's bus. And I would actually basically, the cost of the tickets were $15 per child. And I would get additional popcorn and additional soda, and I would sell the tickets for $20. So that type of thing I learned from the time I was young. My grandfathers, both of them were entrepreneurs. One grandfather, he was a jack of all trades. He was a television repair person. He played the piano. He was just on his own. So, I always saw that when I was growing up. My other grandfather, he owned property, so he would always take me to different places where he was collecting the rent. And the other thing he was a numbers runner as well. So from an entrepreneur standpoint, I saw both sides of it. So that's something that always stuck with me about just wanting to be your own boss. But I wasn't really sure if I wanted to do it or not. But my thing really occurred more of a spiritual type of thing. I was really working with my company here in San Antonio, had a fantastic opportunity. They talked to me about being one of the owners in the company. I was the youngest person there. They was the only African American. It just seemed like a dream type of deal. And then God just woke me up one day and said, hey, I need you to do something different. And I said, there's no way in the world. I said, I have a 3-year-old. I have a 1-year-old. I got to go to a job that is steady. I have to go someplace that's already established. And he kept waking me up night after night, telling me that I need you to do something different. So at the time, I talked to my wife and I said, hey, God is waking me up and he told me I need to do something different. And she was very supportive and she said, well, if that's what he's telling you to do, then you need to go do it. So I went into my office and I talked to my boss and I told him, you know what, God's been waking me up and told me that I need to do something different. And this is a fantastic opportunity. I would love to be with this company, but I just can't do it. And what I realized at that moment is why, I tell people from a spiritual standpoint, I knew that I would be successful because most of the time, if you walk into your office or your former office with your former boss and you tell them that you're going to leave and you're going to open up a business that's similar to theirs, they're simply going to throw you right out. But we were able to sit there for the next half an hour and devise a plan on how I was able to stay with the company stay there as a consultant, work there as a consultant, and got paid twice as much as what I was getting paid before, and I was able to build up my business. So I tell people, I said that I couldn't have planned it any better than that. So from that moment, I would say that God basically cracks open the door and my job is to kick it in.
Very nice. So you answered the call that was on your life and took a leap of faith. In regard to leadership, what would you consider to be the 3 most important attributes of an effective leader?
Well, Cedric, I think there's a lot of different attributes for an effective leader, and I don't know if I can limit it to 3, but the 3 that come to mind, first of all, would be lead by example. It's very hard for you to tell people to do something that you wouldn't do yourself. So I think you need to lead by your example in what you do. The other thing that I think you need to do is you need to be a servant leader. So the other thing I tell people from a servant standpoint is, you always don't lead from the front. Sometimes you lead from behind. Sometimes you have to put people in front of you. So most of the time, what I try and tell people here is that I'm here to support you. I'm here to make sure that you're successful. And in order for us to be successful, I need to make sure that you're successful. The other thing that you need to do is you need to recognize people's talents and you need to utilize their strengths. So you don't put somebody
in the seat on the bus where they're not going to be successful. People, there's one of the famous books that I look at all the time. They talk about you can have the right people on the bus, but if you put them in the wrong seat, that it's not going to be a successful bus ride. So I try to make sure that what I do is I get the right people on the bus and I put them in the right seats.
Okay, very good. Travis, with a long, distinguished career thus far, and you've still got a bright future ahead of you, what would you consider to be your greatest accomplishment?
Cedric, I'm one of those. I think just mild mannered kind of folks, and most people, when they talk to me or they talk about me, they say, well, you've done a lot, and I really don't think I've done a lot at all. I mean, I just try and do what I'm here to do. I just think that God has put me here with a certain amount of talent to do certain things, and I just try and fulfill those dreams that He has for me. My greatest accomplishment that I would think would be really raising my two kids. And I know that that's not done yet. And I'm talking to you, who has 3 kids, and I'm sure it's never done. But I would say that to this point, though, that's probably my greatest accomplishment, is just being able to maintain and spend a lot of time with my 2 children.
Travis, based on leaders I've met and interviewed over my career, moguls in the making, many moguls, moguls to be, they each have some educational product on their nightstand, some book or something that they're referring to on a regular basis. So one of the great departments in the magazine is called What's on Your Nightstand? Mm-hmm. What are you currently reading, Travis?
All right, so I'll tell you a couple things that are on my nightstand and one of the things I'm reading as well. So one of the books is called Kingdom Man. And the premise of Kingdom Man basically has to do with men that are godly and how they lead their lives and how they lead their families. So to me, that's very important to me. And that's one of the things that's on my nightstand. The other thing is a book called Scaling Up. And the scaling up process has to do with basically, taking a company of a small size and taking it to the next level. And that's one of the things that we're trying to do at C&G. Whether or not it's in terms of actually growth in terms of numbers, or whether it's just growth in terms of productivity and profitability, we're trying to take it to the next stage. So those are the 2 things right now that I'm trying to focus on. One has to do with my spiritual life, and then one, of course, has to do with C&G as a business.
Okay. You mentioned earlier about your extracurricular activities. You're doing some nonprofit work and that sort of thing. Do you involve your family in those activities at all?
Well, definitely. First of all, my kids are avid soccer players. So one of the things that, I try to be one of those parents that are involved, and not to the point where, I'm sitting there and telling them what to do. But, a lot of times when you see things and you see needs, people want to complain about it. And I'm one of those people that if you see a need and you see something that needs to change, then the best way to do that is to get involved. So I'm actually on the soccer board for the club that my kids belong to. So that's one of the things that I take care of and I'm mainly involved in from an extracurricular activity. The other thing, if you want to just talk about extracurricular period, as I said, I'm an avid workout person. I try to work out probably about 4 days a week. I believe that your body is a temple. And in terms of actually, God gave that to us and we need to take care of it. So in terms of what I eat, I try to make sure I look at what I eat. I take care of my body from that standpoint. And then the other thing, typically, I love to dance. So those people that know me, that really, really know me, know that I love to dance.
Okay. That's awesome. Mind, body, and spirit.
Mind, body, and soul.
Holistic existence. Final question. What's the one thing most people don't know about you, but should?
Well, I don't know if they should or shouldn't, just Cedric, in terms of actually being able to know me. But I would have said, they should know that I love to dance, just because if you want me to get involved in something, I'm a dancing machine. But the thing that I would say that you really should know about me is I'm one that I love being by myself. And I just love spending time with myself. And that's not necessarily something that a lot of people want to do. But in terms of actually just the solitude of being by yourself and being able to think and hear yourself and basically hear God in terms of what He says to you, that's something that's very important to me. So that's something that you should know about me.
Okay. That's it, Travis. We appreciate your time.
Well, thanks for having me, Cedric. I appreciate you.